Absolutely, but first I have to know what's your favorite pizza.
Oh, and I personally just like cheese, just plain cheese pizza.
Yeah,
And
like
what,
maybe cheese with some vegetables on it.
okay, now you're going healthy.
So hello, Miss Davies. Thank you so much for being here today with us. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, this episode of Pizza and Politics is virtual, and sadly, there's no pizza. But we'd like to start off with a very controversial question, and that is, what's your favorite topping on pizza?
It would have to be everything. The more the better. And I have to tell you, I had some pizza before I came.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of counts for Pizza and Politics.
Okay, so jumping right into the questions, could you first talk to us about what you do as an assembly member and how you got started in politics?
I live in Laguna Niguel, and I moved to Laguna Niguel in 1995. A beautiful city, and I realized, when it came to government and those that represented you, we had a very well-run city, but I wanted to make sure it stayed that way. And so I got, very involved in the community. I own a small business, and I work with the chamber and different other clubs, and realized that, we have to make sure we've got good leadership all the way through. So I was asked to go ahead and run for city council. I was elected in 2012, served as mayor that term. It's a 4-year term. Ran again, and then I finished off as mayor last year. You can only have 2 4-year terms, so I was out there, and then I was looking into assembly. And one of the biggest things I noticed when I was on city council is local control, and that's very important, especially when you have leadership up at the state and even the federal level, trying to decide what's best for you. And a lot of times they don't know your community.
As a Republican, how do you try to push for meaningful legislation in a democratic trifecta? And how do you try to work with other side of the aisle?
You know what? I think it's all about building relationships. And whether you're Republican or Democrat, or, perhaps you're just going into a different job, I think that people have to have trust. And so that was really what I campaign on is, making sure that we have good policy. And so if you can come up with good common sense policy, everybody has a lot of things in common. They all want public safety. They want their residents to be safe. They want good health issues. So trying to find issues that, you're both, you're both concerned about. And that's really the best way to do it. And right now I have a couple bills where we have the Democrats that have co-authored, and that's the way to get things done.
Oh, so yeah, that was a great answer. So moving on, one of the largest issues, especially in the state of California, is the housing crisis as well as the rise of homelessness. How do you plan on tackling this problem in the assembly?
Certainly, obviously they kind of go hand in hand, but I'm going to separate them for you right now. When you look at the housing and affordable housing, there's a lot of reasons why it's not affordable. And there was a time when housing was affordable. And I think you have to look back at why it was and then what happened to get it to this point. And a lot of it's regulations, CEQA. There's additional fees. It costs a builder 3 times more to build a house here than it does in Texas because of taxes and fees and requirements. We need to look at why things were working. What is it, the policy that they passed that all of a sudden changed things? And sometimes you need to go back to the way things were, maybe tweak them a little bit, but you have to understand, where did the problem start? And what was the policy that, started moving forward?
Thank you for sharing that with us. That was really insightful. A lot of those things I haven't really heard about before, so thank you. California also has some of the highest taxes in the country. And according to your website, this is unsustainable and the state has a spending problem. So how do you plan on lowering taxes and fees for Californians, and how are you going to tackle the spending problem?
Well, I think the problem is when you're looking at any government, whether it's a city, a state, and even the federal government, they need to run their budget like we run a budget. About me, when I sit there, I have a checkbook and I know how much money I have and how much I can spend. And I just can't make money. And so I think it's important that we have to go back to basics. And you can't tax people constantly. You can't keep spending and then hope that you're going to be taxing them, because there's a point now where there won't be, the people cannot afford to keep being taxed. California is one of the highest states when it comes to tax, gas tax, corporate tax, sales tax. And there's a point, as you see, a lot of people, I would say thousands of people, are moving out from the state. Well, pretty soon you're not going to have anybody to tax, and you're not going to have anyone being able to pay and support.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So, moving on, another bipartisan issue for a lot of young people is the issue of climate change. How are you going to tackle this issue, and how is it different from what your colleagues have offered?
Certainly, I mean, the environment is a priority to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, Republican or Democrat. Everybody wants to live in a safe, healthy community. And we also have to look at, you know, we've got high standards here in California, but sometimes you have to make sure when you set a goal that that goal is actually economically obtainable. And you can't just, for instance, to say, we'll take, for instance, you know, that we're going to have fuel-free cars by 2035 and transit by 2045. Well, that's a great, you know, goal to have. But a lot of times they don't tell you how to do that. So if you're going to actually give somebody a goal, you have to know that you have to be able to have a solution of how you're going to get there and how you can afford to do it. Right now, if you have, the cost of a bus is around $500,000 right now. If you go to electric bus, you're looking at $1.5 million per bus. How are they supposed to pay for that? See, they don't tell them how they can go ahead and get that money to pay for it. So again, they're great goals, but you have to be able to have solutions and make sure that they're economically obtainable.
An issue that many believe is necessary to solve is the issue of crime in the state. How do you think your experience as mayor of Laguna Niguel shows your ability to reduce crime across the state, especially in our current political climate?
Certainly, you know, we've been very blessed with incredible law enforcement. Our sheriffs in Orange County do a great job. And as mayor in Laguna Niguel, we were rated, actually we were rated like in the top 10 safest cities in California, the top 100 in the country. But you know what, that has a lot of community outreach. I can tell you in the 8 years when I was serving on city council as mayor, I worked a lot with our law enforcement, and we did different programs, different outreaches, neighborhood watches, one of the #1, letting people see something, say something. And with neighborhood watch programs, we have about 110 HOAs just within Laguna Niguel. With what I did is I said that I would go to every first meeting if the community would open up their own neighborhood watch program. So in about 6 months, we went from 60 to 90 and increased. Again, it's always being aware, knowing your neighbors, say something, see something. So, you know, we're very fortunate to live in a beautiful district that, you know, takes that to heart.
Guys, so moving on, could you talk to us about girl empowerment and the anti-bully prevention, the programs you established, and what incentivized you to establish these programs, and what do they mean to you?
Thank you. When I got onto city council in 2012, you know, the safety of our teens was so important to me. And again, our law enforcement, people don't realize they do all these programs. So I was able to coordinate with them. And the anti-bullying, you know, to me, that was really something that was so important, because you're seeing these kids that, and we actually started our anti-bullying program where we had kids that were like 3rd grade and up, and letting them realize that, you know what, it's not acceptable. And if they see someone bullying someone else, that they need to go and tell a trusted adult so that they're aware of what's going on. And the girl empowerment, which if you haven't taken it, I highly recommend it. What it really teaches the girls just to be aware of their surroundings, but also that, you know what, your body is your body, and no one has a right to, you know, to go past that safety point in, you know, where you're at. It also teaches you a little bit of self-defense. It teaches you to say back out, back off, and use your voice. It's okay for women to be strong, and, you know, let them know that this isn't acceptable. And it's really great to watch in the beginning of the class where they're quiet, and then by the end of the class, it's coming out of their voices, back off, you know, and it basically empowering women. And we also did a lot of drug awareness, working with our teens and educating them on the dangers of prescription drugs. and teaching the parents signs and, giving them tools to be able to work with.
I think those two issues, anti-bullying and girl empowerment, are such really important issues that we have to really instill in our young people. But moving on, what are your thoughts on why local government should not be underestimated, and why should communities focus on getting involved with politics on a local level as much as they do on a state and federal level?
Obviously, you said local level is so important. I mean, this is where you live, and this is this is hopefully where you want to live for a while. And you also have a say, because you know what, you can get a lot more done at the local level than you can the more you move up. And I think people should get involved in politics. You should know who's your mayor. Meet your city manager. That's always a great one, because they're going to tell you about the different projects that are going on. Meet your public works. In Laguna Niguel, what I really liked is one of our council members, Elaine Genoway, former mayor, she came up with a civic class, and it was for 8th graders. And basically what it did is it taught them about local government. They'd have speakers such as our city manager, or a public works, or a sheriff, or a school trustee, so that they understood how government works and what our responsibilities and duties are as part of that.
Wow, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, local government, definitely. There's a lot that people should be learning about that. So kind of on that note, we really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. So our last question is, why do you think students and today's youth should take the time out of their busy schedules to learn about government and engage in it as well, since they're the generations of tomorrow?
Well, I think the number one is you want to learn what's going on, because the laws that are being made right now, whether it's ordinances at a local level or your state or federal, this is going to affect you. It's going to affect your pocketbook. It's going to affect the safety of you and your family down the line. So you want to be aware of what's happening, and you want to be able to react to it, and not sit there and then after there's an election, wonder why all of a sudden your taxes went up, or this is banned. This is different, or something was raised, or what I mean. It's important that you understand ahead of time so you can fight. I mean, you're in high school. If all of a sudden you found out perhaps they're gonna stop doing something, what's like one of your certain activities you love, or they're not gonna have, I'll just throw school dances, or they're not gonna have rallies. You know what? You'd want to fight, going, wait, what's going on? I want to know about this. So if you have a well-run city, you probably don't know who the mayor is. You probably don't know who your city council members are. You don't know your city manager, because things are good. It's when things aren't good. I said, if my city wasn't being run well, you'd know my name, the color of my car, probably the name of my dog, and where I live. So that's always it's important. Get active. I can tell you, in our in Laguna Niguel, we have a really great youth committee. And I think there's like 15 of kids that from 9th grade to 12th sit on that, and they run a meeting just like city council. They're up on the dais. They have a chair and a co-chair, and they make decisions of what events and activities they want to do with the city throughout the year for the different kids and the different schools. So that's a great thing to get involved in as you graduate. Commissions are great to get on. There's like Transportation Commission, there's the Parks and Rec Commission, things where you can find out and you get to make decisions there. And those decisions then will go to the city council. You know what, if people ignore the leaders will just do whatever they want. And sometimes, unfortunately, their agenda should be your agenda, but a lot of times they have their own agenda. And if nobody's watching, their best interest is their own and not yours.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your insight on all these different issues that our communities are facing.
All right, thank you so much. We really
Thank you so much for taking the time, not to mention that you actually have an interest in this. So something tells me you guys are going to be incredible leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.